I was sitting in front of the mirror, carefully putting on my makeup like I always do before going out. It was a quiet evening, the kind where everything feels calm but somehow also a little strange. My stepson was in the next room, and usually he's either playing video games or watching something on his phone. But tonight, when I glanced toward the doorway, I noticed him standing there, just watching me. Not a word, no smile, no reaction at all. His eyes didn't look angry or happy. They were just empty, like he was somewhere else. At first, I thought maybe he was just curious about the makeup, maybe wondering why I was so focused. But the silence between us stretched longer than usual, and it started to feel heavy. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just a moment of awkwardness. But the way he stood there, so still and quiet, made me uneasy. I tried to start a conversation, asking if he was okay, but he didn't answer. He just kept watching, and the air in the room seemed to grow colder. It's strange how silence can speak louder than words sometimes. I could feel it like a weight pressing down on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. This was not the first time I noticed odd behavior from him, but tonight felt different. It was like there was a barrier between us, something unspoken that neither of us dared to mention. My mind started racing, wondering what he was thinking, why he was so quiet. Was he angry? Scared? Or maybe hiding something? As I reached for my lipstick, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror behind me. For a brief second, his face looked strange. Not his usual self. It was hard to explain, but something about the way his eyes met mine sent a chill down my spine. Then he turned away and walked back into the other room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the unanswered questions hanging in the air. I sat there, frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do next. The silence felt thick, like the calm before a storm. I didn't know if I should follow him, ask more questions, or just wait. Part of me wanted to believe it was nothing, just a kid being quiet. But another part knew that this night was different. Something was about to happen, something I couldn't yet understand. And that's when the phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The words on the screen made my heart skip a beat, and suddenly everything felt even more real and even more terrifying. What was going on with my stepson? Why was he watching me like that? And who had just sent that message? I'm still trying to figure it out. But whatever happens next, I know one thing for sure: this night is far from over. My hands trembled slightly as I stared at the message on my phone. The screen showed only a few words, but they were enough to send a cold wave through me. Watch him closely. No name, no explanation, just that short warning. My mind immediately went back to my stepson, to the way he had been watching me so silently just moments before. What was I supposed to watch for? What was going on behind that quiet expression he wore? I've always tried to be patient with him. He's not my biological son, but since my partner and I got married, I've done my best to be there for him, whether it was helping with homework or just talking when he needed it. But lately, things have felt off. He's been more distant, quieter than usual, and sometimes he'd just disappear for hours without telling anyone where he was going. I thought maybe it was just typical teenager stuff, but now I wasn't so sure. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. Usually, he's glued to his phone, but tonight, nothing. The house felt too quiet, almost empty, even though I knew he was somewhere inside. I walked to the living room and noticed his jacket was still hanging by the door. So, he was here. But where exactly? As I looked around, I thought about the little things I'd noticed before, the strange notes he'd scribbled in his notebook, the late-night phone calls he quickly ended when I walked by, the way he sometimes stared off into space like he was somewhere far away. I'd tried to ignore it because I didn't want to push him or make him feel like I didn't trust him. But now, with that message, and the way he'd watched me, I felt like I couldn't look the other way anymore. I sat back down at the mirror and tried to finish my makeup, but my hands shook too much. My mind was racing through questions I didn't have answers for. Was he in trouble? Was someone else involved? Or was he hiding something even from me? I thought about asking my partner, but I knew he wouldn't understand. He always says my stepson is just going through a phase, but I felt there was something deeper, something darker beneath the surface. The more I thought about it, the more I remembered other strange moments, like the time I found a small box under his bed filled with old photos and things that didn't seem to belong to him. He said it was nothing, but I wondered if it was connected to whatever was going on now. Could those silent nights and strange looks be part of something bigger? Suddenly, the lights flickered for a second, and I felt a chill creep down my neck. The house felt different, like it was holding its breath. I heard a faint sound from upstairs, like footsteps, slow, careful steps that didn't belong to my partner or me. My heart pounded as I stood up, trying to tell myself it was nothing. But something told me I needed to be ready for whatever was coming next. I grabbed my phone again, and the screen lit up with another message, this time from the same unknown number. It said, "Don't trust him." My breath caught in my throat. Who was sending these messages? Why were they warning me? And more importantly, why were they so sure my stepson was dangerous? I didn't know what to think anymore. The boy I was trying to connect with, the one who had always seemed like just a quiet teenager, suddenly felt like a stranger. There was a hidden side to him, something he wasn't ready to show, and now I was caught in the middle of it. I looked at the door to the next room, half expecting to see him step out any second. But the silence stayed, thick and heavy. I realized I had to find out the truth, no matter how scary it might be. But the question was, where do I start? And how much was I willing to risk to uncover what was really going on behind that silence? The next day felt heavier than usual. The quiet tension from last night didn't disappear, it lingered like a shadow in every corner of the house. I tried to act normal, to pretend that everything was fine, but inside I was unraveling. Every time my stepson passed by, I caught myself searching for signs, something to explain the strange silence, the empty look in his eyes, or the messages that still echoed in my mind. Watch him closely. Don't trust him. Those words were like a warning I couldn't ignore, and I didn't know who to believe. At breakfast, he barely touched his food and didn't look at me once. I wanted to ask questions, but the fear of pushing him away stopped me. Instead, I settled for small talk, hoping to break the wall between us. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked gently, but he just shrugged and muttered, "Fine." The way he said it felt like a door closing. My partner noticed something was off too. Later that day, he pulled me aside and said, "Maybe you're overthinking this. He's just a kid. Let him be." But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more under the surface. I wished I could explain the strange messages, the way my stepson watched me like I was a stranger, or the cold feeling that seemed to hang around him lately. I decided to check his room when he was out, something I never thought I would do. I needed to understand, to find answers. His desk was cluttered with notebooks, some filled with scribbled drawings that looked like secret codes, others with strange phrases I couldn't quite understand. Among the papers, I found a small, folded note that read, "They're watching. Be careful." My heart raced. Who were they? Was my stepson hiding from someone, or something? As I put the note down, my phone buzzed again. Another message. "Trust no one." The fear inside me grew stronger. The people sending these warnings seemed to know more than I did, but who were they? I wondered if this was connected to the secretive calls I'd heard him take late at night, the disappearances, or the box of old photos I'd found before. That evening, I decided to confront him gently. "Can we talk?" I asked when we were alone. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say no, but then he nodded slowly. As he spoke, his voice was quiet and careful. "I'm trying to protect you," he said, "but it's complicated." He told me bits and pieces about a group of people who had been watching him since before we moved in together, people who wanted something from him, but he never explained what. It was like he was living a double life, one that I wasn't part of. I wanted to believe him, but the mystery only deepened. Why had he never told me before? And why now? I realized the house itself felt different, like there were secrets in every shadow. The tension wasn't just between us, it was something bigger, something I couldn't control. I started noticing small things, The way the lights flickered, strange noises at night, and the feeling of being watched even when I was alone. I wanted to protect my family, but I was trapped between not knowing who to trust and the fear that the truth might tear us apart. The more I learned, the more questions I had. Who was watching us? What was my stepson really hiding? And what was I willing to do to keep us safe? The night stretched on, and the silence in the house grew deeper. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next, but I knew I had no choice but to face it. The truth was waiting, and I had to find it before it was too late. That night, the house felt different, like the air itself was charged with something unseen. I lay in bed, wide awake, listening to the faintest sounds. Every creak, every whisper of the wind outside made my heart race. I kept glancing at the doorway, half expecting my stepson to appear, or worse, someone else. The messages on my phone played over and over in my mind. Watch him closely. Don't trust him. Trust no one. Who was behind them? And what did they want from us? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched not just by strangers, but maybe by people much closer than I realized. The unease I'd felt all day turned into something deeper, almost suffocating. I wanted to get up and check on him, but my legs felt heavy, as if the fear was holding me down. Suddenly, a noise came from downstairs, a soft shuffle, like footsteps moving slowly across the floor. I froze, heart pounding in my chest. The hallway was dark, and I couldn't tell if it was my stepson or someone else. I grabbed my phone, considering calling for help, but then I heard a whisper. It was too low to understand, but it was definitely a voice. I stood up slowly, every step making my skin crawl. As I moved toward the stairs, I saw the living room light flicker on and off. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting into shapes I couldn't explain. My phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. This time it said only one word: run. Fear paralyzed me. Run? But from what? And where? I hesitated, then started moving down the stairs, heart in my throat. The silence was broken only by the faint sound of something scraping against the floor. I stopped, holding my breath. The noise stopped too. I reached the bottom step and saw the front door was wide open, swaying slightly in the wind. My partner's car was still in the driveway, but no sign of my stepson. Panic flooded me. I rushed outside, calling his name, but only the cold night answered. I knew then that whatever had been watching him, or watching us, was getting closer. The notes, the strange behavior, the chilling messages, they were warnings I hadn't been ready for. My stepson's silence now made more sense, but it also terrified me. What had he gotten himself into? Was he in danger? Or was he hiding something darker? As I stood there in the cold, I heard my phone buzz again. The message wasn't from the unknown number this time. It was from my stepson. "Don't come looking," it said. My heart shattered. Why would he say that? What was he trying to protect me from? Or was it a warning of something worse? I wanted to believe he was still somewhere safe, that this was just another game, another secret I wasn't supposed to understand yet. But the look in his eyes yesterday, the silence that stretched between us, it told me the truth was far from simple. I had to find him, to understand what was happening before it was too late. The night deepened, and the house grew colder. The mystery was closing in, and I was running out of time. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. And the worst part? I still didn't know who to trust. Just as I was about to step back inside and call the police, my phone buzzed again. Another message, but this time, the text was different. It wasn't a warning or a threat. It was a single photo. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the screen. The picture was taken inside our own living room, but the room looked empty, except in the background. Standing near the window was my stepson. His face was turned away, but the way his shoulders were hunched made him look fragile, almost lost. What struck me most was the fact that the photo was taken from behind the couch, meaning whoever sent it was inside the house. The realization hit me like a punch. Someone was in the house. Someone was watching us. But how? When? And why hadn't I heard anything before? The fear that had been simmering all day suddenly boiled over. I looked around the dark yard, half expecting to see a shadow slipping away, but there was nothing. Just the cold night air and the quiet street. I tried calling my stepson again, but he didn't answer. My partner was still out for the evening, unaware of the growing storm inside our home. I debated whether to wake him, but something told me this wasn't a problem he'd understand easily. It was something deeper, something tied to my stepson's silence, the strange messages, and now this mysterious presence in our house. I stepped back inside cautiously, locking the door behind me and checking every window. Nothing seemed out of place except for the small, folded note I'd found earlier in my stepson's room. It had been on the kitchen table, where I hadn't noticed it before. My hands trembled as I unfolded it again. This time, there was a new message written in shaky handwriting. "He's not who you think he is." My mind raced. Who was he? Was it my stepson? Or was it someone else? The words felt like a crack in everything I believed about our family. I felt betrayed, confused, and scared all at once. Had I been wrong about him all along? Was the boy I was trying to protect actually hiding something dangerous? I grabbed my jacket and decided to search the house one more time, calling his name softly. The silence answered me again, but then a faint sound caught my attention, a whisper from upstairs. I followed it, heart pounding, every step echoing in the empty hallway. At the top of the stairs, I saw his bedroom door slightly open. Inside, the room was dark except for the glow of his phone screen. On it, a text conversation with an unknown contact flashed briefly before he quickly locked the phone when I stepped in. I caught a glimpse of the last message. "You have to make a choice, stay silent or face the consequences." His eyes met mine, and for a moment, the boy I thought I knew disappeared. There was a hardness there, a fear mixed with something else, something almost dangerous. I wanted to reach out to comfort him, but I didn't know how. The distance between us felt wider than ever. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Time is running out. Decide now." I realized then that this wasn't just about secrets or misunderstandings. This was a fight, a battle involving my stepson, me, and forces I didn't understand yet. And if I wasn't careful, we could all lose. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing darker around me. I was standing on the edge of something terrifying, with no idea what would happen next. But one thing was clear, whatever was coming, it was bigger than any of us had imagined. And it was only just beginning. The house felt colder than ever as I stood in my stepson's room, the weight of his last message pressing down on me. His eyes searched mine, silent but desperate. I realized then that he wasn't just hiding secrets, he was trapped in something I barely understood. The phone in his hand was still locked, but I knew I needed answers fast. "Tell me everything," I whispered, my voice shaking. He hesitated, then finally spoke, words that shattered the fragile calm I'd been clinging to. "I'm not who you think I am," he said quietly. "There's someone else inside me, something that's been controlling parts of me. That's why I've been silent, watching, afraid." I blinked, struggling to grasp what he was saying. "Controlling you? What do you mean?" He swallowed hard, eyes darkening. "There's a side of me I can't explain, a part that wakes up without me knowing. I think it's why the messages started, why someone is watching us. I'm scared I'll lose control." My heart pounded. Everything began to make sense, the strange notes, the messages, the silence. This wasn't just a family mystery, it was something far deeper, something dangerous. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. My stepson's breathing quickened, and I grabbed his hand. "We have to stay calm," I said, though fear clawed at my throat. From the shadows, a low voice echoed through the room. "You can't run from this." I spun around, eyes searching, but no one was there. My stepson's grip tightened. "It's inside me," he whispered. "It's been with me for years." The voice grew louder, more urgent. I realized it was coming from his phone, which had somehow turned on in the dark. A new message appeared on the screen. Choose now, accept, or lose everything. I looked at my stepson, who nodded slowly. I want to fight it, he said, voice firm. But I need your help. Together, we sat in the darkness, the phone's glow the only light. He explained how the other presence had been growing stronger, trying to take over his life. The strange messages were warnings, both from the entity and from those trying to protect him. We talked through the night, building a plan to face whatever was inside him. Just when I thought we had reached a fragile understanding, the phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't a threat or a warning. It was a photo of my partner, standing outside the house, but his face was twisted in a way that wasn't human. A cold dread washed over me. I realized the fight wasn't just inside my stepson anymore. It was inside our family. My partner had changed, or maybe he never was who I thought he was. The real danger was closer than I'd ever imagined. The phone lit up one final time with a new message. The darkness spreads. Choose who you trust, before it chooses for you. I looked at my stepson, and he looked back with the same fear and determination. We had no choice but to face the unknown together. And just as I was about to reach for the phone again, the room plunged into silence, except for a soft whisper behind me, chilling me to the bone. You can't save him. The night had only just begun. For a moment, the whisper hung in the air, cold and heavy, like the final breath of a storm. I turned slowly, searching the darkness behind me, but there was no one. Just silence. My stepson's hand tightened around mine, a reminder that we were still together, still fighting. The truth had finally come out. Whatever was inside him, it wasn't just a secret. It was a battle for control, a struggle that had invaded every part of our lives. But even in that darkness, I saw something strong in him, a spark of hope, a will to fight back. We spent the next few hours talking through everything, the strange messages, the hidden fears, the nights filled with silence and shadows. He told me about the voices in his head, the moments he lost time, and the overwhelming fear that he might hurt someone he loved. I listened, holding his hand, telling him he wasn't alone. When morning came, we agreed on a plan. We wouldn't pretend the darkness wasn't there, but we also wouldn't let it win. We would get help from professionals, from each other, and face this challenge as a family. I also confronted my partner about the strange photo and the changes I'd sensed in him. After hours of talking, he finally admitted he'd been scared too, that something had affected him, but he'd hidden it out of fear. We promised to stand united, no matter what came next. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the tension that had filled the house began to ease. The silence was no longer heavy. It was a quiet space where healing could start. Looking back, I realized how much I had learned about trust and family. Sometimes, the people we love carry battles we can't see. And sometimes, silence isn't emptiness. It's a cry for help. My stepson's silence was never just about hiding. It was about surviving. And now, with every secret shared, we were building a future together, stronger and more honest than before. The house still felt like home, but now it was a place where fear didn't rule. We weren't perfect, and the darkness hadn't disappeared, but we had each other, and that was enough. If there's one thing I want anyone watching this to take away, it's this. Don't ignore the quiet signs. Sometimes the hardest battles are invisible, and the people who seem the most silent might be the ones who need us the most. Trust, patience, and love can be the strongest lights in the darkest times. Our story isn't over, not really. But for now, we've taken the first step toward healing. And that, in itself, is a kind of victory.